China understands the West much better and has imported important ideas from the West, such as, Marxism. Whereas the West is ignorant about China, doesn't want to learn. And that's a great concern to me. I used to say to my friends who think I'm crazy because I work with and am enthusiastic about the Chinese development, I used to say to them, you don't have to be pro-Chinese, and you don't have to be anti-Chinese or China. Just be curious. Go there, see for yourself. Read a few things. Look at Chinese media every day and not just your local newspaper. I can tell you it's a hard time to make people do that because we're so convinced that we are number one. And we're not number one anymore, and we're not the only ones who have answers to questions. Lots of people around the world have answers where we should listen just and say, how did they do it? We don't have to do the same. I mean, for me, unity in diversity is absolutely essential. Unity in uniformity, no thanks, that means war. But unity in diversity, living together as different as we are, with all the cultures and richness of history and perceptions, modes of thinking, social cosmologies, philosophies, is absolutely essential. The moment we begin to kill that, the same way we were killing species, we're gone. There's no way to survive unless we are diverse, we are different. And that also is the best road to peace, because anybody who tries to say to us, you must be like us, is doing violence to others. It may be with a good heart, Christian missionaries and all that, but they're doing violence to the right of other people to find their own way. So I say non-interference in Panshil is so important because that allows us to be different. That allows us to practice unity and diversity, not unity and uniformity. The Americans would like the world to be united in uniformity, and it so happens around their own system of democracy and human rights and all that. It's never going to work. And the future of the world will be one without empires. I know for a fact that China is not so, sorry for my word, but they're not that stupid that they believe they can run the world or should run the world or change everybody into becoming like one-party systems or Confucianists or something like that. The Chinese mode of operation is we respect people as they are, where they are and what they believe in, and then we see whether we can cooperate. That's a much better philosophy. And it's not creating warfare. That's why you don't build bases all around the world. That's why you don't have warfare all over the world as the Western world has. So this idea of trying to mold somebody else into your own image as the solution, first world, second world, third world, fourth world, and almost climb up to be like you, is a sick idea of the Western world. It will go too when we get a multipolar world with no empires. The US empire is the last empire in human history. 50 years ago, the Americans could tell anyone what to do. And it had a credibility or a goodwill capital, if you will, because I grew up with the Americans as the leadership, as new products, consumerism, culture, Elvis Presley, Bob Dylan, all this. It's gone. It doesn't have that legitimacy anymore. And then you get frustrated because people don't obey or follow your rules anymore because there are others coming up. And that's natural. It's like a patriarch and his children stop listening to him while he's on his deathbed. And that's where we basically are today. We have to accept the world is changing. The times they are changing, as Bob Dylan sings. And that's where we are. That the Western world will no longer dominate, and its best choice now is to cooperate instead of isolating itself, and that's what it does in the European Union and the United States. Isolating yourself by all the things you do, more and more people, the 85% of the world, will stand back and say, "We're not going your way. You're doing it wrongly. Come into our community and work with us instead." But you use the big hammer, and somebody who uses the big hammer all the time, the weapons, the export, the war, are not going to be loved by the rest of the world. So it's very easy. You're not going to be loved by the world or listened to if you keep on bullying everybody. And that's what you do with 700 bases or something like that, with warfare, with threats, with sanctions. I mean, the Americans are suffering from something I call sanctionitis. It's a very serious disease because I don't know whether it's now approaching 100,000 sanctions around the world against any, but a lot of individuals and regions and factories and countries. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? I mean, it kills people. And nobody asks themselves, what right do we have? Is it just because we're Christians? What right do we have to expect that others should go our way or become like us? I think the Chinese are smarter because they say we don't want anybody else to be like us. We're proud of what we are. We'd like to be unique. I find that pride important because it's not a chauvinist pride. It's a pride in who you are. And you're not, as long as you don't export it to everybody else and requires everybody else to be like you with force, with the Bible, or with a sword, then it's fine with me. But the West cannot understand these things because we also, as leaders, are not equally interested in non-Westerners as the non-West has been interested in the West. So we know too little. We're in, the level of knowledge about China and the Western world is appallingly low. If you don't think new ways, you cannot act in new ways.